So today we'll go with some basic understanding of OAF framework, its architecture
Okay.
today.
Okay, sure.
So it will be the high level information, the background of OAF framework.
Mm-hmm.
So OAF framework basically, as the name says, it's a Oracle application framework. That means it is a proprietary application of the framework which is used only for the Oracle applications. Oracle
Mm-hmm.
EBS. This has been designed only for usage to for
Or
Oracle EBS. This has been
yes.
come up when the self-service they thought of implementing. So all the self-service pages within the Oracle EBS has been built using the OAF framework. And the tool behind
Okay.
this development is JDeveloper. And this is
Yeah.
completely Java-based application using a J2W Java to Enterprise application. Using this, they have built a enterprise level framework, which is a
Mm-hmm.
Oracle proprietary framework. They have built this using a Java, so it's a Java based, but very basic Java knowledge is sufficient just to if you understand the
Mm-hmm.
data types, methods, and classes,
Mm-hmm.
that is more than sufficient. And rest of the things you can easily understand, and on the go also you can learn easily because it is
Okay.
not having the complete the Java. We are just going to use the framework. Even you can implement the Java related concepts also here, it's up to us, but basically we'll be going with the framework. So this
Okay.
framework, the Oracle applications has built with a specific model which we call it as a model view using MVC architecture, which is a model view controller, and it is a three-tier architecture. They have designed
Oh.
in this manner. So this three-tier architecture, it will have the model view and controller, three different layers.
Mm-hmm.
So each layer, one is generally what happens, a user when they open some pages, which is OA framework, as we know, it is OA framework is always accessible only through the self-service. That means browsers, which is
Yes.
self-service and can be accessed through the browser. So browser, when we open the browser, that means it is
Mm-hmm.
a user-facing. That means client-facing tier. So
Correct.
user sees everything on the browser. So that's a client-facing tier. And there are
Okay.
some listeners in
Mm-hmm.
between which understands and communicate with the client. That means communicate with the browser.
Okay.
That is where the MDS controller BC4J concepts comes in depth. When once we go into the exact the sessions, they will get to know in detail what is BC4J. And
Okay.
UIX is something but look and feel, whichever the user sees on the page, it is called as UIX. That is a GUI. In this
Okay.
UIX, there will be multiple components we'll be seeing like buttons, text fields, or tables, like all
Mm-hmm.
components. All these components are the framework related components only we can see. We cannot
Okay.
see our own look and feel. We cannot implement our own look and feel or our own design. Making use of the provided framework features only we can build the UIX.
Okay.
And there is a another part in the listener, that is mod MDS, which is called as metadata service.
Mm-hmm.
Metadata service, it deals about the pages, and it deals with the personalizations. Also, it deals with the extensions. When we go into the in-depth topics, then we'll understand more about MDS, how it is used and how it manages. For now,
Okay.
it's a browser. There is a listener.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple components are there within the listener. Each is meant for its own purpose, like
Mm-hmm.
the page look and feel and the metadata service, and also OA controller. This another one. This is a mainly user interacting component.
Okay.
Whatever you want to show to the user or whatever you want to listen from the user, everything can only be controlled through the OA controller. This plays a key role when interacting
Okay.
with the user, that means the browser. And another layer, another side of it is data. Whatever we are doing, whatever we are seeing on the page, it is all about data. It is only the UIX part where we want to, it shows how to see the data, that's it. Otherwise it everything linked to the data part. So it's a database, obviously, which is at the on the other end. So we are just getting the data and displaying the way we want, or we are listening to the user and going back to the data
Mm-hmm.
side, and we are doing something and again showing back to the user.
Okay.
So I said it's a model view controller architecture, which is this is the framework which is followed, which is a three-tier architecture. So view, model, and controller. View is nothing but a browser side, which we
Mm-hmm.
have seen in the previous slide. That is the view part. The how we want to show the page to the user. It all falls under the view part, and the model part is a part where we implement all the business logics. It deals about all about the data and the database related things. So there are multiple components which are involved in building this model layer. So like view objects, entity objects,
Mm-hmm.
application modules, all these comes under the model layer. Using all of these components, we build something, right? We can perform DML operations, we can get the data and show to the user. All these are performed at model layer. And control layer is the layer which is
Mm-hmm.
involved to understand the user actions and act accordingly. Only the controller directly understands the user facing layer.
Yes.
So the model is a data part, view is a user interface part, which is a browser and the look and feel, and controller is a code where we write and try to understand what user is requesting for and what we want to show to the user.
Yes.
So model represent the data objects. Like I said, that there are multiple components which are involved within this, like view objects, application module, entity objects, these components. And view
Mm-hmm.
part, generally pages are involved under this, because it is a page where we develop in order to develop a look and feel. And controller,
Okay.
it's a controller, one of the component in the BC4J. That means BC4J stands for business components for Java. All
Okay.
this framework is made up of multiple components. All these components together, we call it as a BC4J. It's a kind of repository we maintain,
Okay.
that we'll see further. But for now, just remember, controller is one of the BC4J component, which is a different tier where it understands the user actions. It is the
Okay.
one which interact with the user.
Okay.
So whatever we have tried to understand now is it's just a representation in a
Uh-huh.
diagrammatic manner. This is a browser on the first screen which we are seeing, and everything is going as a HTML request and response. Suppose a user is clicking on a search button. We
Uh-huh.
understand it goes as a request. This request is read in the controller. This
Uh-huh.
controller, we write the code and tell that what it has to be done, and we go to the model layer. Under this view objects, entity objects, application module, all these components will be there. We'll be making use of these components and derive
Mm-hmm.
something from that, and the data is sent back as a response back to the browser. So this is all
Okay.
everything goes as a HTML request and response manner. We did not think about much of all these things. It's just a background and
Correct.
understanding part. Everything takes care
Mm.
by the framework. We just need to know how to use the BC4J
Yeah.
components. Browser, we simply see some design on the page, but it has many things behind. When we
Okay.
say UIX, UX nothing but the look and feel on the page. So on browser we are seeing many components. Like example, if it is search page, we are inputting some parameters. We
Mm-hmm.
are having, we will be having some buttons, we'll be having a table, it shows the results. All this is a design.
Yes.
Using the UX features, we builds the page and its look and feel. For that framework, what it had done, it had provided us two types of components. One is
Mm-hmm.
regions, one is items. Anything
Okay.
we see on the page is only the combination of regions and items. That's it.
Okay.
Every region or every item we see on the page is called as a bean. These are all Java beans. Let's say
Okay.
we have, and there are many styles of regions, many styles of items. Depends on our requirement and depends on how we want to design the page. We have to use particular region style or particular item style
Yes.
and make use of these beans, and we design the page accordingly. So every component, blindly remember that every component in a page is a bean. If you
Okay.
want to interact with the bean or if you want to modify the bean at any point of time, you should know what is that bean, what is the bean name, and you can
Okay.
modify dynamically in the controller. That we go into the later part, but we can modify dynamically.
Sure. Sure.
So when I said there are hundreds, many style, region styles, many item styles, and
Mm-hmm.
each of these component is called a bean. That means
Yeah.
each bean has its own name and own
Okay.
behavior and own way of look and feel. So just remember that in the
Uh-huh.
left side in the page hierarchy, this is a
Mm-hmm.
page hierarchy is just a sample which has many regions and items. The
Correct.
one which I place my cursor, it is a region,
Mm.
and bottom is one more region, and here these are all the items.
Items.
Each and every component has its own style.
Mm-hmm.
You can relate once we get into the development, but
Okay.
each region has its own style. That means it has its own name, own bean name.
Yeah.
And framework has defined its own methods and functions within that to for its behavior and look and feel. So each bean has its own name. Whatever we see on the page is a bean. Every bean
Correct.
has its own name. So it is very easy to know the bean name. Bean name is nothing but a class. There will be a predefined class provided by the
Mm-hmm.
framework. Example, just an example. Suppose we have text input item. So the
Okay.
style name of the text input is message style text. That is a style name, item style
Mm-hmm.
name. That we can see in the JDeveloper easily. Will come to know, will
Yeah.
understand. But identifying the class name, that means the bean name, is very easy. We have to just put OA in the front and bean at the
Mm-hmm.
end. That's it. It forms a bean name,
Okay.
and class will be present with the same name. If it is message text input, it is OA message text input bean.
Okay.
Default single column region, for example, region style. Default single column is a region style.
Mm-hmm.
OA default single column bin. That's it. Put OA in the caps at the starting and bin with need caps at the ending without any spaces. That forms the bin name. It is easy to identify within the framework.
Correct.
So what happens on the left side, the page hierarchy, this is the hierarchy we see the way we see in the JDeveloper actually. It
Mm-hmm.
has multiple components, but you are seeing as a single hierarchy, like it's simply in a single format. But in real time, what happens, these all components are broken into pieces and
Mm-hmm.
stored within the metadata service. Just blindly remember, all these
Uh-huh.
components are broken and stored in the metadata service, which is MDS
Okay.
framework. This Oracle application framework they have designed in such a way that
Mm-hmm.
they don't store the page look and feel in one file format. Whatever we see user is seeing on the page, it is HTML page, but in
Okay.
real time it is not a HTML page. When we are
Mm-hmm.
developing a page, it stores in a XML format. Again,
Okay.
This XML won't go and sit in the system somewhere as a XML file directly. It is broken. It is
Okay.
broken into parts and stores everything in a table. That repository we call it as MDS repository. When
Okay.
user
Got it.
is trying to access any page, what happens? These all broken components are collected into one part
Uh-huh.
dynamically. Dynamically, they are formed as an HTML and then
Uh-huh.
shows to a user. There is a purpose behind that. This is how the design they went, so that using this approach
Mm-hmm.
we can implement personalizations and customizations. If you see some of the applications like some of the uh, framework applications, they won't allow much of personalizations and extensions. There are very limited features we can modify, limited features we have to modify, but this framework has given an extensive feature
Mm-hmm.
to add many number of customizations and personalizations. Because of that, they have come up with this kind of model. So just remember, every
Uh-huh.
component of a page, which in a page which we see is a bean, and all these beans are broken into pieces and stored in the MDS. There will be
Yes.
some list of tables. Later we'll know. Uh, Broken into pieces. When user is trying to access a page, it is building the page dynamically by clubbing all the related components, and it builds HTML and shows to the user.
Okay.
So here UIX renderers, it is showing different style components. One is attachment, one is table, one is text, checkbox, radio button, tip, like that.
Oh,
So
okay.
that these are all beans. I mean, each has its own style, own purpose,
Okay.
own behavior.
Yeah.
Under model layer, model is a layer which is responsible for dealing with the data. You might be having a requirement to perform some DML operations, or you just want to show some
Mm-hmm.
results to the user.
Okay.
So there are few components provided by the framework to deal with under the model layer. Those components are application module,
Mm-hmm.
view object, entity object. In general terminology, in a short form, we call it as VO for view object, AM for application module, EO for
Mm.
entity object. These are
Okay.
the only components which are available. Depends on the purpose, we use particular components.
Okay.
Entity object we use only when we want to perform some DML operations. Otherwise, we don't use entity objects. In order to show the data, we have to always use view objects.
Okay.
And application module will I'll explain you in detail. This is a very key component in the model.
Okay. Okay.
So these objects, which are you see the BC4J objects, are utilized by this UX bean hierarchy. That means we can associate these components to the beans.
Okay.
So it forms a relationship. Let's say I have a table. Just creating a table won't be sufficient. I need to get some data from the database and show it. For that, we have to use view object. You have to build a view object, associate that view object to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Table can have multiple columns, and we will see how to associate all those things. But beans, we can associate the model related objects also.
Yeah.
Mainly entity object, we cannot directly use it. Only view object and application module we can associate. Why and all we will see later.
Okay.
For now it will be heavy. Just remember, these
Yeah.
BC4J objects we can utilize in by the bean objects.
Yeah.
Controller, the last layer. This is
Mm-hmm.
the layer where it interacts with the user. Generally, controller, we in a short form in OAF framework we call it as CO. CO stands for controller. It's a
Okay.
standard naming convention. We use a short form. CO.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear about CO, that means it's a controller. So the controller,
Okay.
as it's the name says that it controls the browser. Like
Yeah.
example, if you are clicking on apply button,
Mm-hmm.
controller out of all the business components, business BC4J components, only
Uh,
controller can understand the click of apply button. Application module cannot understand, view object cannot understand, entity objects cannot understand. Only controller can understand.
okay.
It directly relates with the page. So the
Yes.
request which we apply, clicking on apply is a request. Read by the controller, we
Mm-hmm.
write some code and we perform some actions and again send back data to the user. So this is a part of the controller,
Okay.
which is a CO. It's one of the busy project component.
Yes.
It's just again a diagrammatic representation of the
Uh-huh.
complete page flow, like how the client tire it navigates, it travels from client tire to the database and again send back the data. So in the first client tire part, if you see
Uh-huh.
on the left side, there is a view. It's a web bean hierarchy. So bean hierarchy is nothing but combination of regions and items. Blindly remember this. That's it.
Yeah.
And the controller, it understands the actions. Even button is also bean. So
Yeah.
button is will have inbuilt action. So you click since you are clicking, that means you are doing some action that is read by the controller. Example. So
Mm-hmm.
controller will have some methods, two basic methods which will
Uh-huh.
understand. When we go into the controller, we'll try to understand that what methods and what is it for. Controller
Sure.
can read this and it has to contact the database. Let's say it is search button.
Uh-huh.
That means we are trying to read some parameters. We want to pass some these parameters or we want to get results from the database. So controller cannot directly contact
Mm-hmm.
the database and get the results for you. There in between there is a layer which is application module. This
Okay.
application module is only responsible for creating the database context, application context, anything. So the context and the session management will be done by the application module.
Okay.
It creates a context properly for your page. That is the reason controller has to contact application module, and application through application module only you can call the view objects.
Uh-huh.
You can see the flow. You can, if you see the
Yeah.
flow, controller to application module. That means through controller only you can navigate contact application module. And from application
Correct.
module from 2 to 3 you see view object. That means through application module only you can contact view object.
Yeah.
And from 4 to the 4, 3 to 4, it is written as entity object. That means through view object only we can contact entity object. And
Okay.
5 to 4 to 5 it is saying validation logic. That means any business validations,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to perform, then you can go through this entity object only. That means not only the business validation in the sense, if you want to perform in
Mm-hmm.
any DML operation in easy
Yeah.
language, then only this entity object is required. Otherwise view object can go to the database directly.
Okay.
But doing all these things, application module has to create some context for you, then only it gives access to you.
Yeah.
That is the reason we are flowing through these layers. By the time you cross the application module, that means you have all the context ready. Your database
Yes.
context is also ready. JDBC connection is established. You are ready
Mm-hmm.
to access the database. That
Okay.
is the reason you are bypassing through the application module. By the time by you bypass, everything will be ready for you. You can through view object, you can always call some use some SQL queries and
Mm-hmm.
get the results. That is how the
Okay.
flow works. So framework strictly follows this flow. So if you remember this flow properly, it is very easy for us in understanding and
Yes. Yes.
development when we are doing some developments.
Okay, so here,
Yeah.
in some cases, we can direct view object directly connect, deal with the, uh, in some cases,
Database,
view
correct.
object direct, yeah, database, right?
But
And
only
in the DML case,
view
hmm
object can only uh, it works as a read only. It cannot perform any DML
okay,
operation. Just reads. It can only read the data and give it to you. That's it. It don't
fetching,
have any
that's it.
rights to modify the data.
So fetching only.
Only fetching. That's it.
Yeah, yeah,
If you
yeah,
want
yeah, got
to,
it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you want to perform any DML operations, you have to go through entity objects. But again, entity object directly we cannot use. It has to go through Vivo only. That is how this
Yeah,
framework has been designed.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's clearing. Yeah,
Next slide we can go, right.
sure, sure.
Okay. Whatever
Yeah.
we have seen in the previous one,
Uh-huh.
it is all shown in a layered format. Generally, this framework it is called as a onion layer. Like the
Okay.
onion, there
Mm-hmm.
are many layers in the onion, right? So each
Correct.
layer understand the above layer. If there are 10 layers, layer
Uh-huh.
1 cannot directly interact with the 10th layer.
Oh,
If it has to go to the 10th layer, it has to go properly through layer to layer. That is
clear.
how we have seen in the previous slide also. It is
Yes.
more understandable way we are representing here. So the
Correct.
database, whenever entity object involves, just blindly remember that
Uh-huh.
it is something we are going to deal with the DML operations.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
generally, this representation which we are seeing here, it is in a view that uh, we have a page which performs some business operation. That means we are saving the data.
Mm-hmm.
So in that
Okay.
manner, you just keep that database. Database objects can be modified like example table. Table can be
Mm-hmm.
modified by the entity object, and on top of
Yes.
this entity object there will be view object, and top of the view object application module and wire controller on the top. So wire controller, if it wants to get some data and show to the user,
Uh-huh.
it cannot go and contact view object directly. It has to go through application module only. That means entity object should be always attached to the view object. View object should always be attached to the control application module. Application module can be
Mm.
attached or used in the page. These two are independent. Via
Mm-hmm.
controller and application module. Interaction wise, this is the layer we have to follow. We can bypass these layers using some normal Java approach, but it is a framework to work
Yeah.
properly. We have to go with these layers only. Always there are some loopholes. We can always since it is
Uh-huh.
all Java components classes. One
Yeah.
class can be, you have alternate approaches to bypass and go through.
Which layer we can bypass?
Suppose
Uh-huh.
uh, if you want to perform something on the view objects, you can directly call this view object in the controller only, and then you can perform any
Oh,
actions.
okay.
You can get
Okay.
the data. Generally, what
Got it.
happens? View object
Mm-hmm.
application module. Let's say we have 10 view objects.
Okay.
All these 10 view objects, generally what happens? We have to attach to the application module. That means directly application module has access to the view objects.
Uh-huh.
Directly we can call or do anything on the view objects within the application module.
Okay.
Even though if
Yeah.
you call a view object in the controller, still you
Mm-hmm.
have to go through application module only,
Yeah.
because application module will only hold the view object.
Oh,
First you
yeah.
have to call the application module
Mm-hmm.
and get the view objects from within the application module only. In the code we'll see,
Sure.
but this is the
Sure.
hierarchy layer followed. Database directly, OA controller, application module, view object, entity object, and database. That's
Yeah.
it. So the data flows only in these directions.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, as it said, each layer only knows about the layers below it.
Yeah. So okay.
So
So
application
both way the
OAF
data is
controller.
both the
Yeah.
way data flow, right?
Yes, yes.
Both the direction. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you want to contact application module, OA controller, we write some code so that this will
Uh-huh.
be initialized, and then within the application module, we can write any code or call the view objects directly.
Mm-hmm.
In the coding part,
Yeah.
even the UI part, attaching and all, there will be something we'll learn.
Okay.
But this is the
Okay.
flow.
Yeah.
So entity objects, specifically we use it. This is one of the BC feature component which comes under model layer.
Uh-huh.
So entity object is one of the component. Whenever we want to perform some DML operations, we
Uh,
use this. If you want to insert some data, delete some data, update some data, or the table, I mean, insert,
mm-hmm.
update, delete operations you perform on the table. It is very easy. It's without writing much of code. Easily we
Uh-huh.
can manage the DML operations on the page.
Okay.
If you have some API standard, then it is not straightforward because it tries to insert or update the data directly.
Uh-huh.
But we can always write our own validations. There are some methods provided. We can always do
Okay.
that. Validations and all, we can do that. But in order to perform DML operation in a very easy way, framework allows you to do that with limited code.
Okay. So one thing,
And
when you
yeah,
say DML, right? But other than DML,
yeah,
suppose sometimes we used to call API, or performing any some procedures or some operations or
mm,
validations.
mm.
In that case, also we are using EU.
No, not required. But you
Okay.
can also call.
Okay.
Generally, by default,
Okay.
what happens? Entity object when we create a
Uh-huh.
framework, what it does by default, a framework allows you to modify the data. But you can restrict
Oh.
the entity object not to modify the data. We have some features. It's just
Okay.
property. Your entity object attributes will be there. We just set
Uh-huh.
some properties so that even though you are trying to save the data, it won't save. You have to do that.
Okay.
And in the validation insert, there will be some methods. You can write your
Uh-huh.
API there also. Let's say your
Okay.
table, let's say your table is having some 10 columns.
Mm-hmm.
When you define entity object, to the
Mm-hmm.
entity object, we associate a table. For a table,
Correct.
for each database component, we have to create one entity object.
Yes.
If you have 10 tables, 10 entity objects you can create. That will anyways, I'll repeat this later also, high level
Uh-huh.
now. So
Yeah.
let's say one table, you are having 10 columns, and
Mm-hmm.
10 columns, 10 columns related access will be directly present in the entity object in the form of setter and getter methods. Framework directly
Okay.
uses those methods to save the data or retrieve the data, all those things. Framework will do that.
Oh,
It will create
okay.
all the related methods and keep it ready. But if you don't want to allow it to save for some reason, you can anyways disable that. It's
Okay.
simple. We'll
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
you later. Yeah, we'll see that
Sure.
also.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Now in the framework, now we are talking about the BC4J components, right? Entity object, view object,
Mm-hmm.
application module, controller, pages. All these
Mm-hmm.
components where to create. It will be clumsy if you all if create in one folder directly. If you maintain all the data in one folder,
Mm-hmm.
it will be clumsy. So Oracle has given some standards. It is not
Okay.
mandatory. Few things are mandatory to follow, but it is always not mandatory. But it is a standard approach you have to follow so that everyone can understand what component it belongs to. So they have given suggested some approach to maintain the directory. BC4J is nothing but a business components for Java. Business components for Java means it contains all the components like
Yes.
entity, object, view object. So it is a kind of directory structure, hierarchy. That means it is a folder structure.
Correct.
Folder inside that folder, one folder, inside that one folder, folder like that. It's a folder structure or directory. It's a hierarchy. We have to follow some standard hierarchy so that it
Mm-hmm.
is easily understandable by everyone. So
Mm-hmm.
first of all, we develop a page. When we are creating any page, that means as per the standard what it is a custom page only. No,
Yeah.
whichever we develop our own, it is always called as a custom. So
Correct.
it is always good to start with a custom name. That means
Okay.
custom folder name, and do not maintain multiple beginning custom folder names. Like the starting folder whichever we create, that means starting name whichever we use, let
Mm-hmm.
it be unique for everyone. If your 10 resources are there, 10 resources are creating some 10 different folders, it is difficult to maintain. Like
Okay.
example, uh, like there are 10 developers, everyone is developing something.
Mm-hmm.
All our work, if it goes into one hierarchy starting with xx, it is
Mm-hmm.
always good to maintain, so that at the time of upgrade we just copy this folder and put it in the next.
So all
In
all
our,
developers files in one custom folder. Do you mean so?
yeah, we have to maintain one
Okay.
directory hierarchy which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
starts from with something xx or company name or xx company
Correct.
name,
Correct. 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 Got it.
so that inside that there can be multiple, that is fine,
Yeah.
but it has to be under one directory. it,
Yeah.
it should point to one folder so that it is easy to maintain as an upgrade point of view, maintenance point of view, all those things.
Yeah.
So for entity objects, it is always suggested to, let's say it is a xx,
Mm-hmm.
xx starts with xx and followed by Oracle apps. Until here,
Okay.
good to maintain only this hierarchy, Oracle apps. After the Oracle apps, there is a custom top mentioned here. That means
Hmm.
definitely there should be custom any application top. You can use standard
Correct.
or you can use
Mm-hmm.
custom. See, Oracle suggests to always maintain a use a custom application to segregate.
Yes.
If you have any custom application defined, then you can always use custom application short name.
Yes.
If it's xx top is your application name for short name, then xx top. So it can be xx Oracle Labs xx top. In between of this hierarchy folder structure, definitely there should be one application short name. Without application short name, you cannot build the page or run the page,
Yes.
because Oracle EBS is always secured application. So directory structure should start with custom xx, let's say xx Oracle apps xx top,
Mm-hmm.
followed by any number of folders with any name. You
Yeah.
can put two folders, three folders, four folders, fine, according to your project management, according to your requirement or management.
Uh-huh.
But entity object should always be creator under any BC4J or any directory which is ending with schema.server. It
Okay.
should always be created under the folder structure ending with schema.server. Schema is a one folder under the schema server. Now in
Yes.
this example, xx1 folder, Oracle 2, apps 3, custom xx4, xxxx5, schema 6, 7. Under the seventh folder, our entity object should be created. So just blindly remember
Oh.
that all entity objects should always be created under the
Uh-huh.
BC4J ending with schema server, schema.server. Schema
Yeah.
under schema, we should have server, under server we should have our entity object.
Yes.
Remember this.
Okay.
Because going forward, whenever we are creating our components, we'll be following this
Uh-huh.
hierarchy only.
Sure. Sure.
And same for view object. View object
Uh-huh.
should always, first of all, view object can be used for building a query. If you want, view object can hold the query.
Mm-hmm.
Even view object can hold some transient attributes, that means custom variables. Let's say you have
Okay.
a 10 SQL statement with 10 columns
Mm-hmm.
in the select statement. If you can add two more as a custom variables also, that is also allowed. But just for now, just remember that SQL is always Vivo is always SQL based. It should have SQL query.
Okay.
Second thing, we can attach entity objects to the view object. If we have entity objects, it has to be attached to the view object, no other option. In order to use it, we have to attach to the view object.
Okay.
And view object can have number of entity objects. You can add 2, 3, 4, 5 to the single view object.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see in practical why and
Sure.
how it is, for what purpose we do, and how it looks like in the view object when we attach some entity object.
Yes. Yes.
So entity object, as per the layer, we were saying, right, after view object, under the view object there is entity object. The relation how you create is by attaching entity object to the view object.
Yeah.
And any view object should be created only under the BC4G ending with server,
Oh. Okay.
and remaining of the previous directories, it is same, starts with the custom name Oracle Labs followed by
Mm-hmm.
custom application or top or standard application. If you are having FND, if you are
Yeah. Yeah.
per or GLIP, anything you can use,
Mm-hmm.
no problem, but it should have a custom application and but ending with server.
Yes.
So view objects should always be created under the BC4G ending with server. And application module, same, application modules can also be always created under the BC4G ending with server.
Mm-hmm.
View objects and application modules goes under BC4G ending with server.
Yeah.
And application module is responsible for creating the context that we understood. And one more thing is we can always attach, we have to attach view objects to the application module.
Yes.
Without attaching to the application modules, we cannot use it.
Correct.
There is one exception for one component that we'll see in practical, but for now, just blindly remember,
Uh-huh.
always view objects should be attached to the application module in order to
Application model.
use by the framework.
Yes.
Like we
Yes.
attach, like it is mandatory to attach entity objects to the view objects, it is mandatory view objects to be attached to the application module. And application module should always be created under the BC4J ending with server.
Yes.
And every page should have at least one application module. Without application module, page will not work. Because page to work, we are creating a page so that
Mm-hmm.
we are doing that in order to deal with the data. To
Correct.
access the data, we need a context, database context. In order to
Mm-hmm.
have a database context, AM we need.
Yes.
So for that reason, AM is mandatory. At least one AM is required.
Okay.
Each region, each only items cannot hold the application module. Only regions can hold application modules. In a page, nothing
Okay.
simple. We have only two
Oh.
components, regions, items. That's it.
Yes. Yes.
Regions can hold application module.
Yeah.
One region can hold one application module. If you have 10 regions in a page,
Uh-huh.
it allows to attach 10 different application modules. It allows.
Okay. Okay.
But when you are using multiple application modules to a page,
Mm-hmm.
then always the topmost region, that means the parent, super parent region,
Uh-huh.
the application module which is attached to the topmost region will always acts as a root application module. Only that will be taken by the framework for
Uh-huh.
establishing the context.
Okay.
We said that application module is responsible for creating the context, right?
Correct.
If there are 10 application modules, if it creates 10 different contexts, it won't work, right? Session problem will happen.
Yes. Yes.
There will be conflicts.
Yes. Yes.
So the framework is designed in such a way that
Uh-huh.
it by default it takes the topmost one and it
Uh-huh.
maintains it treats that as a root application module. It gives that job to that application module, and rest of the application modules will acts like a
Uh-huh.
child application modules. We call it as retain application modules also. That means it
Uh-huh.
retains the context from the it accesses the context from the root application module. Rest of the application
Yes.
module, it just uses the context which is already created.
Yes.
By default framework will do that. And one thing is do not extend root application module because it breaks the context. To read something from the MDS, it needs database connection.
Mhm.
So if you
Mhm.
disturb that, it won't be able to read. It cannot read the extensions also.
Yes.
Just blindly remember that we should not extend root
Mhm.
application module. That means you should not customize the root application
Uh-huh.
module. Child application modules you can customize, no problem.
Customize. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And application modules should always be created under the BC4G ending with server.
Server.
Mm. And the parent application module name is Oracle OA application module. This will be
Uh,
frequently using. Just remember this name, OA application module. You'll be very frequently
okay.
using this. And it resides within the path Oracle FND framework server.
Okay.
This
Must have
path
been.
no need to
Yeah.
remember that much. If you remember, fine. If not, also fine.
Sure.
Our
Sure.
JDeveloper will have some
Uh-huh.
features to recognize that automatically.
Okay.
It
Okay.
makes our job very easy. But
Okay.
you can remember this OA application module. These are
Okay.
parent class for this application module.
Yeah.
And even okay, we have seen for application model entity objects. Entity objects
Uh-huh.
should be stored in schema.server ending with BC4J, and application modules entity objects schema.server, application module and view objects, that means
Mm-hmm.
vivo and am ending with dot server. And pages, if you are creating any page or controller, it should always be created under the BC4J ending with web UI, WEBUI.
Okay.
XX Oracle apps, XX
Mm-hmm.
top, uh, hello, hello world example,
Okay.
web UI
Web UI.
or CO pages, standalone regions.
So these objects resides here, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have to create under this. You can create Vivo under web UI. It allows framework. JDeveloper won't stop you, but it is not good.
Okay.
So that if I
Okay.
see or someone sees the code, it should be in a.
Yeah. Proper.
If I
Proper.
see server, that means I have something related to view objects and application model. To
Okay.
follow the
That
standards.
standard we need to follow.
Vivo,
Huh?
yeah, that we need to follow. Yeah. Schema.server, it is entity object. You know the full forms, right? I have just written a short form.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this basic for the structure we need to follow always.
Okay.
So you must be already knowing that to develop something or to use the FOIA framework, develop FOIA framework pages, we need a JDeveloper, right? It's a
Yes.
tool
Yes.
provided by
Yes.
Oracle. So
Yes.
it is not the single tool or single version of JDeveloper we have. For each EBS
Mm-hmm.
version, there will be different JDeveloper. It comes
JDeveloper.
as a patch. It is
Oh.
not installation file. It is a runtime executable. We just download the patch.
Okay.
It will have a JDeveloper icon. We just you click
Okay.
on it. It in runtime it opens. It won't install anything.
Okay.
So JDeveloper is a tool we have to use for each Oracle apps version. They'll be different because every version will have some new features, bug fixes, everything,
Uh-huh.
right? So they put
Correct.
everything in
Correct.
the new JDeveloper version accordingly. So it is always
Okay.
good to use the correct JDeveloper version for our pages to properly work. If you are
Um,
see, it will work. One version here and there, it might work, but you might not see the
uh-huh.
same results as you see in the application in the JDeveloper.
Oh.
If
So
12.1
that should be
from
compatible, huh?
between 12.1, yeah, it is compatible. If you are using 12.2.9, you can use 12.2.8.6 also. JDeveloper,
Uh-huh.
related JDeveloper. JDeveloper related to 12.2.6 also you can use for 12.2.9 EBS. But pages might not work as expected. Look and feel might, if there are very major changes between versions, it might not.
Uh-huh.
There can be a Java version changes. There can be features, look and feel,
Okay.
or functionality. All this won't work. So it is always good to use the same. There might be browser compatibility fixes or issues
Okay.
or Java version related. So it is always good to download exact version. So it's a free
Okay.
download if you have the Oracle EBS support access.
Okay.
Tomorrow we'll see that JDeveloper download setup and the folders available and the icon everything.
Mm-hmm.
For now, just we have to understand that we should download exact JDeveloper version. It comes as a patch. It's a runtime executable, and then we have to basically do some setup before using it. That means we are creating the workspace.
Mm-hmm.
We have to create the workspace in order to use it. So that we'll see tomorrow how to configure.
Yeah.